Until when is the blackout?
Just our luck.
Uh,
6-minute video on KoloWn.
Kahit mobile data,
I'll
guess-
ask him if he can.
phone and mobile data, Grace.
If he wants, he can go on his data when it's his part. If he doesn't want to waste his entire data plan.
I'm asking him if he can use his mobile data.
Wala.
That might be very that might be very costly, right?
If he will enroll a promo,
Yeah.
it-
Their promo for students here, since they transitioned online. So parang they will have 50 gigabytes for 50 pesos. And I think an hour of Zoom is 2 or 3 gigabytes.
Wow.
Okay.
Well, it's up to you, Manar, if you wanted to begin, or we should wait a few more minutes.
I think we can begin, and if he manages to join us when Grace is finished with her presentation, when her part, then we're gonna have to see what happens. But I guess we should begin because it's 6:02 now. Okay. So yeah, Kat, you can do that. Have we been? Okay, let's just. Everyone's on mute, and I will start. Okay, hello everyone. Thank you for joining us for this webinar on our first artist talk series, Tuloy Tawid in Conversation. My name is Manar, curator of exhibitions and collections here at the gallery. I'm joined this evening with our guest curator and 3 of our featured artists in Tuloy Tawid. We will have a conversation about the concept of the exhibition and how we developed it with our artists, who will speak to us about their art practice and background and tell us a little more about the projects that they created for this show. The journey of developing and realizing this exhibition for the past year has been a mix of emotions with exciting and inspiring work by all the artists we spoke with. I've learned so much and I've had the pleasure and honor to work on it with our guest curator and all our 6 featured artists. As you may all know, the Art Gallery of Grande Prairie is one of the largest free admissions galleries in Western Canada. We are located within the Montrose Cultural Center, where we share spaces with the Grande Prairie Public Library and Teresa Sargent Hall. We have been extremely honored to have this exhibition in our spaces and to share it with our community. I would like to take some time to acknowledge the land that we reside on, Treaty 8 territory. Indigenous peoples of this region have existed here since time immemorial, and we thank those who have gone before us for their care and stewardship of these lands. We are grateful to the Beaver, Cree, Dene, and Métis people for allowing us to live, work, and grow in this beautiful territory. A special thanks to our sponsors on this show, our very own local Pizza Hut at Justin Monroe. Now I would like to introduce our guest curator, Curators del Rosario, who is a Filipino-Canadian citizen who was born in Manila and raised in Calgary, Alberta, who has completed her BFA in painting at the Alberta College of Arts and Design in 2001, which is now called AU Arts. She has since exhibited in numerous exhibitions across Canada. She participated at the Viva Exxon 2018 in the Philippines and is the founder of Elmo's House Artist Residency in Aklan, Philippines. Curators del Rosario is currently an MFA candidate in sculpture and ceramics at Concordia University and has been our guest curator for the Tuloy Tawid exhibition. Ku, I will now pass the mic on to you to start the show and lead us on to the conversation.
Thank you so much, Manar. Good evening. My name is Curators del Rosario. I'm the guest curator of Tuloy Tawid, Tagalog words meaning to continue to cross. I'm so grateful to have had this opportunity to be with you tonight for this platform to discuss the show, to bring these wonderful artists together to share their work and practice. Before we begin, I would like to say a few words of thanks. This night would not be possible if not for the women behind the scenes, ensuring this virtual technology does not fail us. Thank you, Katrina Shirley, the curatorial assistant for our exhibitions and collections, Brittany Kelsey, manager of development and administration, for tonight, as well as all the work throughout the process. And Sabine Schneider, Community Experience Manager, for developing imaginative learning activities running alongside the exhibition. Rob Swanson, our technician, who lent us its expertise and time, ensuring we have a beautiful exhibition. And of course, Jeff Urbach, the Executive Director, who has been so enthusiastic and encouraging right from the start. And I cannot continue without expressing my gratitude towards Manar Abutuk, our gallery curator, who kept me in line and organizing through all the months of Zooming and dozens of email threads, being down for all the ideas and being such a great sounding board and patient guide. It would have been so overwhelming without her. And of course, I would like to give credit to Derek Chang, who planted the seed from which this project grew, and for dear Allison Collins for connecting us and ensuring this project gets realized. And as I sit here 2 hours away from Manar, and exactly 8 hours behind from the artist in the Philippines, I would like to say my territorial acknowledgement, which is of course a work in progress and will continue to evolve as I widen my scope of knowledge and understanding. Though you are receiving a virtual image of me, my mind and body are supported by the lands and waters of this region, enabling me to perform my daily living and provide rich inspiration and resources. As an uninvited settler here on the unceded Indigenous lands of Tiohtià:ke, Montreal, I'm committed to learning about our fraught histories and current realities, as well as take part in the necessary movements that empower marginalized communities. And to begin, I recognize and give thanks to the Kinien'kehá:ka Nation, who are the custodians of this land. As well, I need to be in alignment with all the nations across Turtle Island as we confront the continued effects of settler colonialism. And I think this is a poignant start to talk about this exhibition. Although the project did not begin with me, the subject matter it attempts to examine is so deeply personal to my experience as a settler of Canada. At the time Derek and I connected, I just arrived in Tiohtià:ke, Montreal from a 3-year stay in a small municipality by the Cebuan Sea called Batan in the province of Aklan in the island of Panay as part of the Visayas region of the Philippines. I'd been tackling my own embodied whiteness in my father's land, looking for ways to connect to the soil of my family, to find kinship with the people I knew by blood, but not by heart. As I am back in Canada, I'm committed now more than ever to reconcile these diaspora conditions that have made me a stranger to my own homeland. Though I made some headway while there, there's still a lifetime of work to be done. And circling back to Derek during his trip to the Philippines to attend the 3rd Kamias Triennial in Quezon City, in the Philippines, which was curated by Canadian artist Allison Collins, Patrick Cruz, Soo-Ying Lee. Derek was introduced to some of the idiosyncrasies of the Philippine culture, and of particular interest was the balikbayan box. And to briefly explain, the balikbayan boxes are provisional imports from Filipinos living abroad to loved ones in the Philippines, and they're sent to satisfy anticipated needs as well as requested goods. As migration continued and expanded, so did the practice of sending and receiving the balikbayan box, becoming so prevalent that the Filipino diasporic experience cannot be imagined without this technology of care. And when parsing the meaning of balikbayan box, balik means to return, while bayan meaning town or country, it seems that these imports are not just about receiving a collection of material goods, but represent important kinship work that helps maintain family connections, as well as remaining an integral part of the community. It is quite easy to romanticize this act of care, which has been used to symbolize the family-centric Filipino, their selflessness, their sacrifices that they gladly make for the benefit of others. But this is just one aspect of the experience, and by not addressing the many other complexities that trouble the issue, it's to ignore the humanity and flatten the struggles and successes of the people implicated by the diaspora, both in homeland and abroad. So with this project, I was excited to explore the nuance, the parts of the story often overlooked or underrepresented. Such exchanges cannot be contained in these boxes. What exactly are we dispatching to one another? What are the meanings behind the objects we send? Does it change from sender to receiver? What is the weight that heavies our gestures and of the unsaid things? What of the evolving histories and cultures we hold in our bodies as we move across distances towards and away from each other? I'm quite fortunate to have been able to approach this project with my own embodied intersectionality, personal history, and changing relationship with Philippines and Canada. I was born in Manila in 1980 to my mother, Gloria, and my father, Elmo. And at 8 years old, my mother and I immigrated to Canada, settling in Calgary with a couple who generously offered their spare room to use for a few months while my mother figured out our next plan. Our benefactors also helped my mother find her first labor job and spend our first frigid winter in the warmth of their house. Without our community and family, this couple became our adopted relatives. We have never met them prior to our meeting at the airport. And just to illustrate the obscurity of this connection, the wife was a sister of my mother's old coworker. She offered her help because she herself understood all too well how far a helping hand means for the unacclimated migrant. Over 30 years later, the Prairies feels the closest to home, and I am well westernized. Over 30 years later, the Prairies feels as I endeavor to reconnect to my heritage and cultural practices, I'm quite aware of the great chasms of cultural differences, beliefs, and socioeconomic conditions, and I'm humbled by the limitations my positionality imposes. This is one of the reasons the perspectives that KoloWn, Grace, and Zeus are so extremely important, especially in this conversation as we tackle such complexities about what permeates between the imagined and constructed boundaries between us. Especially during this time of the pandemic where dysfunctions in current systems are revealed and the most vulnerable are suffering most, it is relevant now to imagine new ways of engaging and connecting. As an artist come curator, I was sensitive to provide a generous guideline from which the artist can think through, encouraging honest and provocative encounters to the prompt. The resulting group of work tackles an array of issues, dimensions, and relationalities often left out of the conversations about the balikbayan box. Working through varying methodologies and materiality, the show is enriched and full of dimension and breadth. Ultimately, the show urges gallery goers to enact their own migration, to continue to cross towards listening, to consider new perspectives and imaginaries, bridging the differences and pointing to the similarities that tether us together within these ever-shifting borders of the diaspora. And now, thank you so much for listening to my spiel. I'm so honored to introduce these three artists that are here with us today and who have contributed to the richness of this exhibition. I've had the pleasure to meet all three of them in person at different moments and in different capacities during my time in the Philippines. And when thinking through which artists would be right for this exhibition, I knew right away that they needed to be included. It is in the differences between all their practices, their specific vision, that I find so thrilling and gives me certainty that whatever response they would have to the project, it would be exciting and coming from a fresh perspective. Grace and I were introduced by a mutual friend and fellow artist based in Capiz named Mark Omega. That connection led me to do some further research into her practice, and I was introduced into Gray's breathtaking textile work. As well, one of KoloWn's members did a mini residency at the artist residency I was running in Batan, where I experienced firsthand their quick wit, keen sense of community, and true collaboration. I then met Zeus while he was visiting Aklan, and from there he reached out and made a detour to Batan, and we had a lovely meeting. He was there conducting field research into traditional piña fabric in Aklan. This is a pineapple textile made from pineapple fibers, and that's a skill brought to us by the Spanish colonizer, but adapted and perfected by the Filipinos. All of these interactions, I believe, can be tangibly traced back to the 2018 Viva XCon, and I just need to mention this. It's the Visayas Islands Visual Arts Exhibition and Conference. It's the oldest running artist biennial in the Philippines, established by the influential and important group of artists called Black Art Collective, and in recent years, was spearheaded by Black Arts member Noberto Roldan and Merv Espina, both of whom are also running Green Papaya projects, which at its long life had supported many significant exhibitions, conferences, musical events, panel discussions, and has been a major supporter of political issues affecting the masa. The community they have built is the root of many links that brought together artists from across Philippines and countless countries across the globe, and have benefited from their generous and wide reach, as evidenced by this international exhibition with Grace, KoloWn, and Zeus. So Greys Lockheart is based in Cebu City in the central Visayas of the Philippines. Grace works across many disciplines: performance, painting, sculpture, installation, video art, as well as text and language-based work. She graduated with a BFA in painting at the University of the Philippines in Cebu, then furthering her study in Asian arts with a focus on traditional puppetry at the PPTK Senidan Budaya Yogyakarta in Indonesia. Currently, Grace lectures at the University of the Philippines in Cebu, as well as managing a robust art practice that sees her exhibit regularly across the Philippines and beyond. Her work explores nature and society's obscure ways, referencing folkloric written motifs, as well as gender constructs and concepts of home as a living entity. Grace utilizes household textiles as settings for communication and social interaction, merging various materials into assemblages and soft sculptures. Grace examines ways these materials function to protect, negotiate, and betray human relationships. The work she produced for the show is aptly titled Amping Kanunay, Fabrics of Home. Amping Kanunay is a term that means take care always in Cebuano. And as you can imagine, this is a phrase that is often used between loved ones at the end of a conversation, of a phone call, of a letter. This phrase is common and figures prominently as the overall sentiment of her pieces. Using materials and images taken from her family archive, we are allowed a small glimpse into the intimate exchanges between her family members through letters and clothes and domestic textiles. KoloWn is an art collective referring to themselves as artist, collective, automation bot. They utilize collaboration, crowdsourcing, automation, and for their projects and site-specific installation. They examine the intersections between public, online, traditional spaces and investigates how meaning, materiality, and technique evolve through the intervention of those spaces. The work that they created for Tuloy Tawid is digital, one that can be accessed independently from the exhibition, appropriately titled Tradewinds. And I'll just drop the link for that as well. You can interact with it in real time. The Tradewinds, the name alludes to the winds that power European colonial expansion. This is a browser-based work that can be accessed using smartphones, laptops, or anything with a web browser. The format of the work was in direct response to the current lockdowns and the imposed restrictions of the pandemic. Tradewinds features images of trash crowdsourced from people residing in Canada, randomly appearing on the screen, floating in and out of the frame, suggesting a kind of infinitude from which a beginning and end cannot be fathomed. The representation of trash coming from contributors based in Canada is a reminder that such goods cross oceans between countries throughout their life cycle, from raw material to material waste. And finally, Zeus Bascon is an artist currently based in Laguna, Philippines. Zeus holds a bachelor's degree in commerce, which factors into the way he thinks about his work and the ways traditional textiles have been greatly affected by the economic fluctuations of the Philippines. Zeus is quite prolific and takes part in numerous exhibitions in the Philippines and internationally. Zeus also participates in various residency programs such as Fictive Communities Asia, Koganecho Bazaar in Japan, Craft Taitung Creator Exchange Program in Taiwan, and just recently Emerging Islands in La Union in the Philippines. Zeus was the recipient of 13 awards, 13 Artist Awards in 2018, and was granted by the Cultural Center of the Philippines. As I mentioned, Zeus participated in the residency in La Union and the specific landscape of the seaside town, as well as conversations with family that seemed even more pressing as the pandemic continued, became the inspiration for the pieces he made for Tuloy Tawid. Certainly 11 Sunsets, the piece in the show, points to these desires and longings. In his artist statement, in questioning his metaphysical relationship to the present, Vascon becomes attuned to a variety of operations, leading him to create artworks charged with mysticism and the supernatural. His interdisciplinary practice involves the transmutation of form extracting elements in personal narratives to illustrate the internal and external, the logistics of location, energy stored in time, and evidence of intuition. 11 Sunsets utilize pieces of repurposed tarpaulin as the canvas stitched together vignettes of sunsets painted from different days. The phenomenon that Zeus is trying to capture requires the engagement of the viewer's imagination and recalling of personal memories to be activated. It is within this imagined space that the yearning and desire become realized. And I just need to mention all three artists have really exciting upcoming projects. First, with Grace, she is currently doing a film, filming a new art video, which she is archiving the process under an Instagram name, and I'll drop that link in the chat. As well, together with KoloWn, they have an upcoming group exhibition together at Cube Gallery in Cebu. And currently, Zeus is participating in a year-long project that is co-curated by Stride Gallery, Kamiya's special projects called Cultivating a Garden. And I'm just going to drop the link in the chat as well. And please let me know if I'm missing anything, but I'll pass it on to Grace for her artist talk. Thank you so much for your continued attention. And please feel free to engage with us in the chat and put in your comments or questions. Thank you. Grace, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can I start now?
Yes, yes, please.
Okay. I'm waiting because the video just froze. Okay, can I? Oh. So I'm gonna talk about my work first in the exhibit before my art practice. Okay, I thought I'm gonna present my slides first. Okay, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Ku. Good evening, Manar. Thank you so much for this great opportunity. This work that I made for Tuloy Tawid, it's really personal for me, because as when we had this initial meeting with Ku and Manar, I was thinking about what will I make for this exhibition without really tackling the literal balikbayan box. So I decided to make use of my family letters that we have for so many years. I don't know, my mom likes to keep letters, so we have a lot of it, like it's in boxes. So I gather those letters and scanned it and print it into postcards. So here it's letters from my aunt from the US, from my sister, and from other relatives. And then there are also exchange letters from my dad and also from my mom. And when I was doing it, it's I felt so emotional reading these letters, because it connects me to the past, like how it is very difficult that time to communicate, because you have to send letters via snail mail. Of course, we don't necessarily practice that now because of the technology. And some of it are notes from my mom's journal, and she likes to write lyrics of songs. And then so I scanned it like I think that's normal before, like if you have a favorite song then you write it in your journal. So That's from my mom and also from my aunt. And then I also found one old journal of my mom, and then there were drawings, like our drawings when we were kids, like our scribbles. So others is from my brother, and then some are from mine. So like, yeah. And there were patterns of dresses because my mom is a dressmaker, which is I will talk about later on how she influenced my art practice. Like she's my greatest influence about this textile work. So this one, this is entitled Gikan sa Itong Tabunon, Kumusta Ka? I use this term "kumusta ka" because it's the closest, or it's the greeting that we commonly use, like in whatever language we speak. Like when you meet someone, you always ask, "How are you?" Like when someone asks you that question, "How are you?" It's a matter of care. So for me to relate the audience to the exhibit, I use this question like "Kumusta ka?" Because for sure visitors of the exhibition cannot relate about the balikbayan box because they're not part of the diaspora. So instead of explaining about the balikbayan box, I made it into words, through words, for them to connect. So it's me like asking, "How are you?" Like, "How's your day?" So it's a matter of care for me to the audience. So that's why I want that work to be interactive. Like I want people to write on the tags, like how they've been doing. And this one is four scroll. And later on, I will talk about much of this work, like why it is in scroll, because there's a reference on that found in most Filipino houses. Like each house, they have this scroll, religious scroll. So I used that scroll. I assimilated that patterns into this one, and then the security patterns of letters. So I use that, and then there are embroidered text here like "Please don't fold pictures inside, thanks," because I found that in one of our envelopes from the letters. And it's very nostalgic, like during the 80s and 90s, like when someone when some letters arrive, there's always a note below that "Please don't fold," because our loved ones would always put pictures inside. And then sometimes they enclosed money, like they put it inside a carbon paper. I don't know why why they put it inside a carbon paper, and then they put it inside the letter. So that's why they also put enclosed like the amount of dollar that they send. So this one, it's "Please don't fold pictures inside." And next, this one, I made this four scroll. It's like a conversation. It's like the first scroll is "Please don't fold pictures inside," and then the reply was "Gimingaw na minimo." It's like, "I miss you." It's, for me, it's like it's a symbol that we don't necessarily need your money. What's important for us is we miss you, and we are hoping that you are coming back soon. So it's like a reply, like enclosed $100, but the reply is "I miss you, gimingaw na minimo." And then the other one is please don't fold pictures inside," and then the reply is "When are you coming back?" So something like that. Like we don't necessarily need material things. What we need is that we wish that our loved ones are near with us. So that's the story of this 4 scrolls. And yeah, next please. Yeah, that one. It cost $100. And then kanus akamu uli. When are you coming back? It's a Cebuano term. Yeah, those the scrolls are like, it's a religious scroll actually, like in the household. Like some of it, like they made some cross stitch of desiderata and or a picture of a saint, their patron saint. So instead of doing that as I don't want it to be, you know, really religious, but um but I also want to imply that um what we can give to our loved ones who are far away is always our prayers, like no matter what. And it's not necessarily the material things, but it's our prayers and our um just, you know, a simple gestures that we care to our loved ones. Yeah, so I think that's it for the scrolls. And then the other one, the first picture earlier, the one with a lot of tags, uh, these are scapulars. In For the Catholics, scapulars are given for protection. It's like there are different kinds of scapulars. So I just tried to assimilate that design or that scapular, and then I put some dedications, like the usual postscripts that we send to our loved ones. Like there's always this amping kanunay, or take care always, I miss you, I love you. And there are parts here that I wrote, take your vitamins, like daily reminder for our loved ones, or it's cold, wear your jacket, because you know we know that we're from the tropical country and our loved ones are not used to cold climates. So we always tell them that, oh, wear your jacket because you'll get some cold or something. So like that. And I also embroidered some patterns, and there's a plique of pieces of cloth. And yeah, I think that's it. It's just a series of postscripts and dedications, and you know, amping kanunay. I made it this way. It's an old, I think it's an old shirt of my mom that she didn't use. It's like a scrap and she wants it to discard. So I told her that, oh, that's mine. I'm gonna use it for my work. And then I let her attach these other domestic textiles. So it's like a curtain, and then you what you call that? You wrapped so that the sunrise will get into the windows. But then I put the scapulars here. So that's it. Those are just patches of scrap household textiles, like curtains and through pillowcases. I think yeah, and it that piece took a lot of time to make because I made it like hand sewn. I don't like using machine. I like to do it by my hands. I really feel connected with my work if I use my hands with it. Like I put myself in my work. I merge myself with the work. But of course, with the help of my mom, she always helped me with my work. She's my number one collaborator, and she's always my collaborator for I think for all my works, for all my textile works. She's always part of it. And this one, like she made a great part with this exhibition, which is also I dedicated it to her and to my aunt and to my sister, like all the female in my family. I dedicated this exhibition to them because they really made a great part, a great contribution of this exhibition, and it made me recall about my childhood, our life during the 90s, like growing up when someone is far away and you always receive these letters, and of course the balikbayan box, like where everybody is excited when when someone from abroad will tell us that, oh, there's a balikbayan box coming up next month, and then everyone is really excited about it. And um, one thing that I cannot forget about what I got from a balikbayan box is during the, I think during the Olympics in Atlanta. That's the first time I received a Barbie doll. Like it's my first ever original Barbie doll, and she's a gymnast because it's like a customized Olympics theme during 1994 Atlanta Olympics. So that's the one that I cannot forget that I got from a balikbayan box. And of course, shoes. Of course, that's always, a thing, shoes and chocolates. But I, but the Barbie doll is the one that I cannot forget. And yeah, I think we're done for this. The video, I made it like a assemblage of the letters, the scapulars, and then on the other side, because I made it a split screen, and the other side is showing about like a diaspora here in the Philippines, about the ukay ukay. Ukay ukay is like a thrift store selling secondhand products, most especially clothes from different countries. So that's it. Like this is also happening in the Philippines. Like everyone is so they get so excited with scraps, and people always make use about these discarded things from abroad. So that's why I juxtaposition it with my cards, my letters, my scapulars, and then on the right side is the daily scene in Ukay Ukay store, and that was shoot during during pandemic. So it's like the people are don't really care that it's pandemic. It's business as usual. So yeah, I think that's it for the video. I think
Is the video something that you can that Katrina has, or? Okay. So Grace, are you finished, or? Sorry,
yes, I'm
it's just because like KoloWn's image just went up right away. So I'm sorry to interrupt. But maybe we can talk more a little bit about your work during the Q&A portion, and then
yeah.
we could figure out the video situation.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much, Grace, for sharing those anecdotes and your process of making these beautiful textile pieces. So next up is KoloWn with KoloWn. You have the floor. I just have to say, KoloWn, we can't hear you. I'm not sure if you're speaking, but we can't hear you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Hi, sorry. Okay, so this is KoloWn's proxy. The real KoloWn right now is having really bad internet connection, so yeah, it's very unexpected. But I'm gonna present the slides as they were given. So are you gonna be in charge of the slides as I?
Katrina, I believe, has the control of the slides.
Okay, so I'll just okay. So okay. Hi everyone. So KoloWn was established in 2007. So basically it's Cebu, Visayas, Manila, and the internet world, Philippines, and vice versa. So the production method is mainly crowdsourcing, collaboration, and right now focusing on automation. In making works, we utilize public spaces, online spaces, and indoor spaces, and how they can all intersect with each other. So next slide. So this was in Art Informal Gallery. It's in a, we used found election posters and it was made as a collage. Next slide. This was Diwat Nimo in Batan Internet Cafe. So this was basically the same thing, but in a more public setting. And it was just showing the whole process. And it was made during Elmo House residency. Okay, next slide. So this was Burns Whip project. It's a web app. So once again, it's a collage and we physically made the collage, but then we utilized again online space to make it, to bring it online for people also to view it in different ways. Also made with advertising posters. And presenting it in the gallery, sorry, next slide. We put the link to the project online. So this was the Golden Sigbin. And next slide. So yeah, this was also the Burns Whip project, but we presented it in a different way in Mono 8 Gallery in Manila. So it was a video of the collage because we also had internet problems there. So we tend to figure out ways how we can present things with or without internet. Okay, next slide. This was public installation interference 2020. So it's an ongoing series where we do public installation in different areas wherever we are, basically. Next slide. Found objects gathered during interference project during lockdown, Habagat and Amihan season. So a lot of our artwork, what we find, it's from the ocean or basically whatever we have on hand. So it's really about utilizing what we have and what we can use and what's basically cheap and easy. So we brought this also, found ways to put it online. So we put the link in a gallery. This was in Mabini Gallery in Manila during a group show. So we collaged it basically into an online project. Sorry, next slide. Okay, that was the link. And next slide after that. This was the collage that we made from the physical work going into the online space. So yeah, we always try to make everything intersect. Next slide. This was prop object series. So this was from what we found during the Habagat, and we made it into an artwork. And we wanted to basically encapsulate it and make it last. So it has resin on it. So this is on the physical side. Next slide. So this was Parallel Space Drawing Room with web-based virtual reality installation. So especially now during the pandemic when we can't be physically there, we can't present works physically, which is hard for a lot of people, we decided to make a virtual reality space where we can present our works and what we do make for people everywhere to see it. Next slide. So this, was our artwork that we physically made. We would scan it or take photos of it and put it into the virtual reality space. And then next slide. This was when we made the actual virtual reality come to life into a gallery. This was in drawing room in May 2021. So we recreated the entire space in the gallery. And you could also view it on your phone at the same time. Next slide. So finally, this is Tradewinds. It's an interactive installation, indoor and web-based. So next slide. So this was our research on it and how we got all of the photos of the floating trash. So our works are really collaborative with different people. And so what we did notice when we asked people to send us photos were a lot of the trash that the photos sent back to us were quote unquote Asian trash. And it was funny in a way that even if you're there in a different part of the world, Canada, or wherever it may be, your culture still shows a lot with your trash and I guess whatever you have there. So next slide. This was the work in the gallery. And the speed is from the wind speed of the North Pacific Ocean. So that's how fast the trash goes in the gallery. And yeah, you can also see it from your own phone. And yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Proxy.
So sorry for the
No,
very unexpected presentation.
No, you did amazing. Thank you so much. Zeus. We'll move on to Zeus Bascon, who will present his work.
Hi. All right. Hello. Good evening and good morning. I'm Zeus Bascon. I'm a visual artist living and working in Santa Rosa, Laguna. So this is what Ku read earlier in the introduction. So next slide, please. This is my studio, and I started as a children's book illustrator and continued experimenting works with different forms of art, from painting, installations, photography, video, and most recently performative and collaborations. So all of which could be considered simply as images that are reflective of my current state of being. So next slide. My works are often ritualistic in a contemplative sense. I try to incorporate signs and then just I consider them as leads, and then I just follow on. It's how I try to contemplate things. I like to use the word conjuring. Consider the word conjuring aside from creating. So next slide. My works are very much rooted from chronicles of personal and collective narratives. And just to give you an idea of how my works evolved, from where my works evolved from, I would like to read an exhibition text from my first solo exhibition written by Con Cabrera for the exhibition titled Trees Burn Down. So His works bear narratives of frustrations, interpretations of ideologies, and the liberation from inhibitions. His home, his dog, his neighborhood, the realities of his environs are reflected as elements, as subject, or as visual anecdotes. To encapsulate his source of inspiration is to betray geography, much like saying that from the journey from Cubao to Santa Rosa is akin to the move from 19 CL Street to 110 Barangay Pook. He knows it is not. So I guess this I mentioned this paragraph to give you an idea of how I will go on with this presentation, going leading to the works that I presented for the exhibition. So next slide. So since the pandemic, one of the challenges I'm facing is figuring out other ways of exhibition making, art making. Um, this is Dead Mask, an ongoing series that I started in Cognito Bazaar during my artist residency in Japan in 2014. And this work helped me develop um, my works from started actually as a column of these masks that you see, and of these masks you consider as paintings on cut out tarpaulins. So it led me to installative, collaborative, and performative work, much into um, more of an exercise of becoming. I would like to consider it. Next slide. Sorry. Can you go back for a while? This I did this for an online exhibition. Um, beginning of the year 2021, and because in the previous exhibitions projects, I would present old works, and since the lockdowns, the restrictions in going from one place to another, it was really hard for me to continue on my practice, because I usually my work involves a lot of like going to suppliers and meeting people. um these the persons, the characters as I call them, in this picture are actually my siblings and my nephews and my niece here in the compound where my studio is located. So the title is Nights Deserting Rapidly the Ruins of Terror Toward Reflection, a family romance. So the poses of each characters were based on tarot cards. So featured here. So I basically, to start the year, I told them, I will I know you select one card, and that will be your guide for the year, even if they don't understand, or but I did try to explain to them what the card means. So the cards that we drew from the deck were the moon, the high priestess, the devil, four of swords, ace of swords, seven of swords, page of pentacles, the tower, and eight of cups. So I'd like to mention this uh like a description of this work, because it will resonate later on what I showed in Tuloy Tawid. So yeah, next slide please. And sun rising along highway, along Tarlac Pangasinan Tiplex. So this was before the pandemic. Before I even get to the work on my pieces for Tuloy Tawid, I engaged in a local residency program called Emerging Islands, focusing on the theme shelter for their first batch of creatives from various disciplines. Um, Past artist residency programs helped me a great deal in learning to be more adaptive, not only in logistical terms of art production, but also on how to understand more my process by figuring out the sense of place in order to determine the sense of being. So, next slide. The idea of participating in emerging islands offered a time to refocus my practice away from my own studio where I stayed in and worked since the pandemic began. It was a change of setting to learn again how to be in touch with my intuition and to gain a sense of balance. It was also a rare opportunity to connect with people by sharing time and space together. So here in La Union, I just brought a lot of my materials from my studio. And as myself, I would always ask them, what will you require of me in this residency? Because in the past, resident, parang residency programs have different formats. So for this one, I'm not sure, but it's my second local residency. Pero I was thinking, how is this residency going to happen because it's a pandemic? So they just told me, Zeus, parang just talk to people, and then from there, I was able to create these works. Na I try to continue um like interviews while wearing costumes, workshops that I think I won't be able to do in Laguna if I stayed in my studio because of the pandemic. But during the time in La Union, it wasn't so the COVID cases. It wasn't so pressing. Um, so next slide. These works were presented in an exhibition titled "A Butterfly is Patient." Um, and I emerged as a butterfly. So I I think in my own experience it was kind of a backward approach, since having the question of how to make an exhibition. But I think with the works that I created during the residency, it was just apt to have this kind of format. So next slide. What was seemed to be an ideal setting for a residency program during a pandemic was soon threatened by a surge of COVID-19 virus cases, just days after the opening. So the lockdown gave me an opportunity to have weeks in solitude in the studio and have time to paint as I would want to. And by this time, um, the exchanges are going on regarding Tuloy Tawid exhibition. And next slide. So on April 3, um, we had like a series of meetings with Ku and Manar, and um, it is an ongoing exchange then since December last year, if it's right. And I'm having trouble um, what to do because although my father's an OFW, but he didn't really send balikbayan boxes, but I didn't get to have that kind of experience, even though all of my childhood years, parang he's been going overseas, and um, it was really hard to relate to the balikbayans on my own account. But then while in La Union, while figuring out things like how will I continue working on other exhibitions aside from the one I did in La Union for Emerging Islands, and one of that is Tuloy Tawid. I get to chat with my sister, which is presently in Belgium, and of course we're talking about COVID, ganyan, updating ourselves like, kamusta ka? How are you? How is it there? But is it safe? Are you safe? Because um I showed her this I sent her this photo from through Messenger, and she just said it's so beautiful. Na she really misses going to the beach. Parang she hadn't gone in the beach since the pandemic began, even the year before. Um and I just thought na the sunset could be an image, like a portal from one person to another person in a different place. So the text that you're seeing in the screen is the part of the email I sent to Ku and Manar the night after that sunset na it's kind of like a eureka moment na parang, oh, I know what to do now. Parang I want to be able to present a work with within this current setting where I am physically and where I am mentally and emotionally. And from there, I collected. Um, can we go to the next slide? I collected I collected tarpaulins and then stitched them together. And since that day, I've been looking at sunsets, taking pictures of sunsets to take a break. And then during that break, I will just try to say prayers or wishes. Um, yeah, since then, I bathe with the warmth of the remaining light for the day, trying to send good wishes to people in my heart. I watch every sunset I can, praying calmly for clarity. At times, I am releasing thoughts and feelings as the sun disappears from the horizon. And what's interesting about watching and observing the sunset is siguro around 4 p.m. or 5 p.m. Parang it starts to go lower, and then the sky color parang changes, and as it nears towards the night, you can actually see like in seconds that the sun will really go down. I mean, try to observe it if you can, but it's just so fun. I mean, for me to see it moving like within seconds to this before it disappears. Um, there were moments when I tried speaking to a person through the sun. Yun nga, as I mentioned, like a portal. It was a very hard time for me, not just worrying with the pandemic and isolation, waiting and longing, the stress of work, but also dealing with the matters of the heart. So the image that you see right now is because in the studio that we use in La Union, there's a panel of Spanish windows with flower patterns that you can see later in the work. And when you zoom in at the very center of the flower, parang this is the image that you can see. It's like the sun is like sort of just an ember. Um, Next slide. So this is the tarpaulin painting titled 11 Lessons by 11 Sunsets. Um, the this lower photo at the right parang is the one it's the last painting I did, and it's the Spanish window I talked about. And during this, while painting this, um it reminded me na because there was a another painting of the sunset, and then I tried to overlay it with the pattern of the window, and it just seems na at the very end of my residency, and I think also the process of painting this whole tapestry, um, it gave me a sign na not of giving up, but just of acceptance, that maybe I was seeing the sunset very romantically, um, and the reality of it is um, after the sunset, it comes the night. After the day, which is hot, parang it becomes cold. So from the beginning of the painting at the very top left of the painting, where the sun is still bright and it's the beginning of the sunset, as it lowers down, um, at the end of it, it's going to be a night, and it's a very different setup, like geographically, with everything, and also if there might be rest. So this is the painting I created, the last piece I created in La Union before I head back to Santa Rosa. Next slide. So back in Santa Rosa, um, I did this shoot for the photograph. That's also part of the show. Um, and it's I didn't include it documentations, but before the last days in La Union, I bought textiles, hand woven textiles that I would make into a garment, an armor, a costume that would be featured in this shoot. So next slide. This is me practicing kasi at the time I can't really afford assistants. I just have to figure out ways on how to continue on producing the work. And I mean, it's a usual, I mean, that's how I do things usually. So the next slide would be the product of the shoot, which is titled The Sun. And the Sun features a costume made with hand-woven cotton textile called Abel, purchased from Bangar, La Union, embroidered with a tribal drawing of the sun. The sun has been a resounding image since the pandemic started. Uh, the images that you can see on the right of the screen, um, these are pictures from 2020, which were posted as one of our entries for Load na Dito's online residency program called Pasa Load. I did the residency with Siddhartha Perez. She's a curator and writer and astrologer, um, and talked about the planets governing each day. Because I worked since 2020, she gave me a work actually. We collaborate on. I provide her images for her astrology uh, research, study, and outputs. So in her post during the residency, it was December 6th, a Sunday, and her Instagram, her handle is at bunga ng langit. I will just type later. I'll type later. She said, our sun, which I think she's referring to our sun sign, is something we earn, strive for, and eventually become. So I thought because of the experience I had during the last months of my stay in La Union and during with the pandemic and thinking of the people away we're not with that we because of all the worries that maybe if we're safe, if we're doing okay, how do we cope? Um, this image I try to produce aims to manifest healing, like beginning of a journey to our sun that I hope presenting it in the gallery, in the exhibition, people can resonate with this kind of manifesting. Because I think at this point, we all need that kind of how do you call it? I don't know. Uh, parang just to have a slightest of hope, a spark is enough, I think. So next slide, please. So um, with the distance and other limitations enforced to us all by this pandemic, I thought of producing these postcards to get across messages outside online platforms, which I think would be very personal. Uh, uh, um, parang kasi I think online platforms technology provides that immediacy, but taking time to write something and anticipating a letter, but I think it's or maybe I'm just being romantic and very idealistic, but I just thought it's something special. It was supposed to be an online activity as part of my work for the exhibition as extending care and love to people across borders. I made an Instagram account, Sunset Postcards, but have failed on working on it for the exhibition since there's so many things happening. And but I hope to continue this project as Grace, since if you heard her presentation earlier, her work was heavily inspired by the letter exchanges, the mail exchanges within her family. And yeah, we hope to collaborate and exchange through sunset postcards in Instagram if there's a chance to continue working on this project. So thank you. I will put on the chat box Bunga ng Langit and Sunset Postcards Instagram account. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Zeus.
Thanks.
Wow, yeah, that's a lot to absorb. So much information, such beautiful works. And apologies again to Grace for unceremoniously transitioning to KoloWn. I'm so sorry about that. I do have a few questions prepared. Maybe I'll start with you, Grace. Or actually, this is a question for all of you. Well, the word, we're all kind of talking about the diaspora. It's kind of a loaded term, especially at this moment. And it cites emotional response, and it's quite difficult to define. I'm just wondering how you define it for yourself, and how you understand this term as it pertains to your own experience.
Hi, can you hear me? Cool. Okay. uh, for me, when I was reading the question, it's really difficult to answer because I don't even know what is the exact meaning of diaspora. Like, and I do not, honestly, for myself, I don't know if we have here in the Philippines, because I am living here in the Philippines. I am not, living somewhere else. So I can't really relate when there is something that they call a diaspora. So for me, that word is still foreign for me. Like, I can't really relate because I'm just living here in the Philippines. I do not experience what we call that discrimination when you are living in another place. So yeah, that's my answer to that. Like, I cannot really relate when something will say about diaspora. So yeah, that's it. Like, for me, it's still foreign for me to encounter that that I don't even know if it's called a culture or what. Like, I don't really know the exact meaning of that word. So yeah, it's still foreign to me.
I guess in just general terms, it's just the way to describe a migration of peoples from their homeland.
Yeah.
And, that also, like, as we're talking about your works, all of your works, it touches on all of our lives, because we're dispersed. Our families are spread across oceans, and all of a sudden, like, how do you even define the borders of the Philippines if its citizens are across oceans and lands? I guess.
Yeah. For me, it's still confusing.
Can I add something? That's okay. It's been it was like years before I encountered the word, and at the very thought I connected it with is with displacement. But then later on, I try. Syempre, of course, it's been a topic, and it's along with the Philippines, and then parang this exhibition. and I asked around, and one of the things that I gathered was it connects also, it's a conscious decision parang to kind of go to another place and then have their relating to citizenship also, and all the other rights that comes with citizenship. Because when crew mentioned na parang how do you define borders right now here in the Philippines, and I was thinking of right now each localities are kind of like functioning as their own units, parang not really following collective like administering with the government. Every local government unit have been given power to control over the kind of like the territory. And yun nga, that's what I want to na I don't this displacement is something negative to connect it with the word, the term, when there's also when it is a decision. I mean, I think when it is a decision, a chosen path.
And certainly it's affected by imperialism and colonialism too, for sure. Maybe I'll ask I guess a personal question since we're going there. Can you share a particularly special and I think, Grace talked about this already with the Olympic Barbie from Atlanta. Is there a particularly special moment or a time or a package even that you've received or sent? And I know this is kind of difficult for you, Zeus, because you said you didn't get a client box, but did Dad ever send letters or?
Actually, not really, but I'm kind of a bitter person answering this question. Kasi there's anything particular given to me as I grow up, even from my uncles and my but I never really when we're told that something's a package is coming, parang I just know there's nothing for me or so it was if I know that they're working but I'm not really in receiving any gifts, and I think it made me look more in parang thoughts of care and messages like a call or messaging, although I didn't get to write because during that time parang there's internet already. It was kinder when I first learned of the internet, so parang the whole time I'm growing up parang there's the we exchange through the internet. So I put more attention to that kind of exchange rather than receiving or wanting an object from a beloved or a relative abroad. So yeah.
Thanks for answering that.
Yeah. Wait, someone's raising a hand.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I don't see the raised hands.
But I'm not sure. From the attendees.
Katrina, do you see that?
It's Angela.
Oh,
Okay.
Angela, would you want to keep, is that a question you're raising your hand? Because we'll come back to it after this, where we leave it to the audience for you guys to have questions. So we'll come back to you.
Thank you so much, Angela. Yes, we'll circle back to you. Proxy, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, so I'm wondering, can is it okay if I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Okay, so in Tradewinds, KoloWn addresses environmental impacts of consumer goods on a global scale, and expanding the lens to think about the refuse produced from food and food packages. And so I just wanted to maybe directly ask if there's any particular incident, or if you want to talk a little bit more specifically about the impetus for the project, if there's a specific event or events that inspired this work.
So generally, we do not support any state dumping their garbage into another country, but we should also criticize local residents here dumping their trash in their own backyard. But at the same time, before we individually blame, we should also first look how global capitalism plays a major role in this global trash crisis. At the end of the day, environmental destruction knows no boundary, just like the effect of the pandemic. It's something that's global. It's everyone.
Thank you so much for that. Were you like, I'm learning a lot about how to kind of decolonize or indigenize the Anthropocene, and I wonder if there are any similar conversations happening there, and if those types of dialogues are different from your perspective.
Like even with the term diaspora, like what Grace said, we don't understand the term either, and we have many OFW relatives, but they also don't understand the term. But we want to understand the terminology deeper, but I think it's not something a lot of us totally understand quite yet.
I think probably because there's no agreed upon meaning, singular meaning. Yeah. Okay, and Zeus, I have a question for you as well. Thank you so much, Proxy. Zeus, can you tell us about your experience in La Union and the conditions from which you came up with a sunset imagery? Oh, well, and also, well, you did talk a little bit about your conversation with your sister. And I wonder, in listening to your talk, you're also kind of referencing a lot of esoteric belief systems with the tarot
cards. Yeah,
and really in talking about the moon card as well, and then all of a sudden the sun figuring very prominently in the way you're thinking about how to almost like a portal. And I wonder, in your meditations in front of the sunset, did you come to some sort of I don't know, I'm just trying to imagine what that would be like, I don't know, as I read this question, I'm like, oh my God, he already answered this.
But yeah, I mean, since the pandemic I think the anxiety, all the frustrations also on how will I continue, or even everyone, parang, how are we going to continue to move forward? As Grace said earlier, even though it's pandemic, business are still going, and not just specific commercial businesses, but every activity is still continuing. So it's kind of hard how to figure out to baga, where will you begin, diba? Um, how will you take all this and still function, ganyan. And at that moment in La Union, I believe I kind of function. Parang that's one of my kumbaga acquired thing growing up, na even though it's in under pressure, parang I can function. But I also believe na I'm losing touch with my kumbaga center, my intuition. So in 2020, it was just so fitting na Siddhartha started this project, Bunga ng Langit, which concerns astrology. And from there, I began diving into it again. So it was a very emotional roller coaster in La Union since April began, during the Holy Week, which is also an interesting time, Holy Week. And I know that I needed to have another source of energy, which I see from the sun because it's very prominent. The sun has been very prominent in the landscape of La Union. There's even an Instagram account dedicated to sunsets of La Union. But
Oh,
it's
wow.
just, yeah, there's an Instagram aside from the postcard Instagram account. But it's just so prominent na it has been part of the people there to watch the sunset. It's a scheduled thing every day. After their work, they watch the sunset. And it's just because or maybe I just I'm trying to maybe just to um put it simply because I can't really explain it also how I try to be inclined in these kinds of energies because I just feel that I've been I've always been connected to these kinds of energies. But it's just so interesting then last night na I'm realizing because there's a person that I'm talking to right now, and he's a Leo, which is the sun, and I'm Cancer, I'm the moon. So during my time in La Union, I just thought na the moon reflects the light from the sun, and I think it just came up last night na maybe it's that kind of relationship lang then what happened there and where I was steered to go to find that kind of energy I need to be able to continue. And it's not much about parang just me getting it. Parang it's how I process that kind of energy for me to be able to give it to another person. And I think it's just always been artwork that I use as my instrument to share it with other people. Um, so I guess that's how I try to come up with things and um, thinking of this pandemic na and thinking of why would you why does an artist or what was the reason artists produce work? It's so much hard to answer because after I did the artworks for Tuloy Tawid, I wasn't able to produce any works after that. Thinking of the question and thinking also of parang since I think my personal life and my art practice kinds of like merge even simply in washing dishes ganyan. I think it's kind of a ritual um because of the water parang on your hands and your yan. um I'm starting to think nga of what is life outside of art, which I think to answer that is more of like doing collaborative work with other people. So ayun, I think I I think the question did I answer it or no?
I think I just wanted you to elaborate more on your work, and you did that beautifully. Thank you. Yeah, I think the pandemic all like gave us all a chance to really meditate and really think of what our next steps would be. And as all of the world goes on fire,
Chaotic, di ba?
it's just thank you so much. And Grace, you talked about labor. I'm figuring very important in the way that you construct your pieces. You like to use your hand as opposed to machine. So that becomes like a really important, I guess, the time and that kind of effort. And then also thinking about you dedicating these pieces to your matrilineage. I wonder, do you think about this as like, I don't know, I don't mean to, is this making it trite? Like thinking about this as more of a like a feminist pieces, or yeah, am I making weird connections here, or?
Not, it's not really feminist, I guess, or just maybe because most of the members of my family that are living abroad were females. So maybe I guess that's the feminist thing comes in. But actually, my brother also lives abroad, but he also likes needlework. Like the male in my family likes needlework. Like I think textile art, it's a family thing for us. Maybe because of my mother, like she's really a great influence to all of us. Like even my brother, he really likes sewing, but he works with machine. I work with my hand, so that's the difference between the two of us. So yeah, I think it may come as a feminist work, but it's not intentional. Because I would also like to point out, like I have a previous work before on our exhibit at Blank Gallery that I adjusted that needlework or textile art is, although we all know that it's a feminine in nature, but it's the same skill that requires every person to produce something, like to produce clothes, to produce dress, to produce domestic interiors, like household textiles. So whether if you're female or male, it's still the same skill that you need to use when you make something. So yeah, and my work in at Blank Gallery at that time, it was inspired by the pincushions of during the Victorian era, during World War One, and they were made by soldiers, so they were men. So it's not really about that. When you say needlework or textile art, it's only for female. No, it's for everyone. So yeah, I think that's it. Maybe it just it sounds so feminist, so maybe because of the family members. We're all females.
Maybe, Manar, did you want to move on to the questions from the audience?
Yes, thank you guys so much for answering these questions. It's been very insightful and lovely to hear you all talk. I will now open up the floor to our audience for any questions you may have. And if you put them in the chat, maybe we can ask some of them.
Angela, I did.
Yeah, I think we have, yeah. So Angela says, so to see what Filipino contemporary artists based here in the Philippines is reacting to the diaspora, what about Filipino artists living and working abroad? Can we give the mic to Angela just so she can elaborate, or?
I don't believe that that's an option that's available for webinars. If it was a meeting, I think we can open it up.
Around the top.
But let's see. I think Katrina tried to, I don't know if you guys can see what's going on down here, and I apologize.
Hello, I'm saying
Yeah,
hello.
there you go.
Hi there.
Hello.
Hi, Angela.
Hi. This has been a very, very interesting talk. I am an older artist based in the Philippines, but I lived in the United States for many years. So I consider myself a Phil-Am artist. The experience I have now living here and meeting a whole generation of younger, relative to my age, contemporary Filipino artists is amazing. I'm so inspired by their works, but they also work with themes and issues that are, as they pointed out today, different from their own experience. But when I lived abroad as an artist, part of a diaspora, I would be exploring certain themes of longing about being home, going home, because I was raised here. So I would like to see more of these talks where there is an exchange, because it's a new generation of artists. If I may, I hope I'm okay. I'm correct in saying that Zeus Bascon and Greys parents are of my generation, and maybe they didn't speak about their experience too much. And I found that living abroad, how much they would not share with their children born and raised abroad about their lives back home or the reasons why they left. Meanwhile, there's a whole generation of younger artists who grew up here with missing parents or grandparents, missing generations who left their lives. So that's why there's such longing. And I'm very moved by Gray's work. I'm fascinated by Zeus' comments that he feels left out. It's sad. So I just love the idea that there's so much to explore in art making. And I'm glad that you're creating this opportunity with your show, and I'd like to see it. The only thing I can quickly just mention is that in the 80s, 90s, there was a galleon trade show where Filipino American artists from California came to Manila. And it was a fascinating exchange because they were also, and now these Fil-Am artists are in their 40s, and they came in their 20s, and they were excited by what they could see for the first time, what it's like to live in the Philippines. So that's all I wanted to share with you, that I find this super fascinating. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Angela. I just would like to clarify, though, that Zeus and Grace are based in the Philippines, and same with KoloWn. They're all based in the Philippines. The three artists that will be talking 2 Fridays from now, they're all based in Canada, in different parts of Canada. But yeah, like we're all dealing with notions of home and what that means, and we all are experiencing a longing for our families or loss of land, or yeah, like I think that's the poetics of this show for sure. We have a question from Sedfree Santiago. Excellent choice of artists for the curators. How did you arrive at the choice? Sorry if this has been previously explained at the beginning, but I logged in late. No worries.
That's a really interesting question, because we did go through a lot until we reached the artist that we chose and how we wanted to do.
Well, definitely speaking about the 3 artists that we have right now, it's definitely about like really wanting to like really just like know how they would be tackling the prompt of the balikbayan box. You know, because they work in such a really diverse practices, and really tackling on different themes and in their own work. So I was really interested to engage with them in a dialogue regarding the balikbayan box. And and consciously thinking about bridging conversations between Philippine-based artists and artists here in Canada, and what that would look like, and how they would kind of exist in the same space. And yeah, so I think hopefully that answers your question. Yeah. Does anyone else have any other questions? Do you guys, Zeus, Grace, or Proxy, do you guys have any questions for us before we wrap things up? Or
I don't know if this is really a question, pero one of the, because during the Camestrinalle, beginning of 2020, yeah, beginning of 2020, there were artists from Canada, the si Jordan Bailon, he's a performance and artist and a poet, and he's researching in like ritualistic practices. So he asked me if I can accompany him to some healers I know, and then we went to Cavite. And after the interview, he asked me parang kind of like the same thing what Angela was asking na yun nga, o parang how to reconnect with their roots. And I don't know if my answer was right, but at that time, I told him about kumbaga getting on the ground, like um getting in touch with the location, because I have this thing of getting a sense of a place to be able to um have a grip on your sense of self. But as I talk astrology with Siddhartha, she was telling also na geography doesn't have to be really like a focal point, na it doesn't have to really have borders. It doesn't really have to separate like people or like it's just a place. It's not really kind of like a pin or something. So I'm not sure if talking about diaspora, parang do we really have to think of um, like a grounding? So it's another question.
yeah, I mean, borders are, it's a colonial construct, right? It's a way of trying to conquer lands that are not, they're not supposed to be owned. Like it's for all of us, I guess. But such as the conditions that we are living in now, it's political for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, and then said Free has a follow-up question for the artist. Given your strong point of view with respect to your art, is there any exhibit you will not do for any reason, like venue, etc.?
Because aside from the because maybe it's very specific um what's happening here in the Philippines also, because I know the pandemic is although it's a global thing and there's like a crisis, this global crisis, and there's along with that crisis with the virus, there's also political different political um chaos happening in different countries. But to answer Sylvie's question, parang in the Philippines, I think right now it's more what the pandemic has shown regarding art production, exhibition making, that artists can, especially here in the Philippines, since there's not much support coming from institutions, local institutions, or the government. Um, I just feel that like the support artists get to initiate projects here in the Philippines are among the artist community or support from outside international institutions. And with the pandemic, I think it's opening up artists to experiment alternative strategies. And for me personally, um, I'll try to support more artist-run spaces. And for example, with my current residency project for MST, which is trying to have a local ecology. So I try to work more in within my town and identify creatives here, whether practicing artists or craft, just to have that kind of um, platform for creatives in our town, aside from what's happening in Manila. Or so it's just empowering them to share that, not really create new audience, but to just share it with a different siguro, group of people, aside from people that's expected to that participates in the the like the exhibition arena or something.
Grace, did you want to answer as well, or?
Yeah. Um, for me, like I seldom do exhibitions. Like, and if I do, it's I don't know. Maybe I am very selective with the. I'm not really particular with the venue, the gallery, but I am particular with the people that I will work with, like the artists that I will work with. Like if my work relates to them, like so that's why I seldom say yes to invitation, because I always feel like I need to feel the artists participating. I don't know, it's just me, because I really value my work, and I don't want it to be displayed in, especially I don't I'm not saying that I don't like commercial galleries. It's just that I am very selective with the people that I work with. And as the same as Zeus, even before, I always work with the community or the non-creative people. So that's why I also have this other group, like actually it's supposed to be anonymous, but I think most of the people already knew who we are. We are working with non-creatives because we want to reach out other people who are not really into art. So that's why the support that I get, the monetary value that I get, usually come from grants and not from the white spaces. I do more of residencies and community work because I want to reach out. I want to reach out kids. I want to reach out women. So most my previous projects are always like that. Like I'm always going out into other places and then doing collaborations. Um, I want to hear their stories, and then out of those stories that I gather, we make a project. Like it's always a site-specific project. It doesn't necessarily that we will exhibit into a four-wall space. I prefer it making it outside or site-specific, because I don't want to rely on the private institution here in the Philippines, because I don't know, we don't the work that we do, like Zeus and our works, the works that we do is not really in. I'm not saying, I don't know how to say this. I don't know if suitable is the correct term for it, but we would like our work to be seen outside from the four walls of the gallery.
Yeah, I think, sorry, I'm gonna think you said free. And KoloWn, Proxy, did you want to answer as well? Okay.
Sorry. Hi.
Hi.
Yeah. So I think with this, we did learn that the working conditions abroad, how it differs from here. So like the proper fees. And we think that there still is a little bit of backward way of compensating artists in the Philippines. And working with this, it kind of gave us an idea that institutions in the Philippines, well, number one, they should pay better for the artists and cultural workers. And in the Philippines, there's less support for the institutions and non-selling works. So a lot of artists, they do tend to do more commercial scene. And I guess that leaves a lot less room for experimenting.
Yeah. Yeah, which is a shame because the experimental work, the things that like happen from the ground, the collaborations with community, the interdisciplinary work with non-creatives along with artists are some of the most exciting work that happens. And we just have one last question. Thank you so much, Proxy. We have just one last question from Derek Chang. He says, I think there is also a form of kinship that comes from working with artists internationally, especially as it relates to themes around diaspora. That form of kinship resonates very strongly throughout Tuloy Tawid for me. Thank you so much, Derek. And I did mention Derek in my introduction. He was the one that planted the seed for this balikbayan box. He's a predecessor of Manar. Yeah, and he's the one that I connected with in regards to this project. So I'm happy to see you in this forum, Derek. Thank you so much.
And on that note, I want to thank you, everyone. Thank you, Grace, Zeus, KoloWn, and Ku, for taking the time to be with us today and sharing your practices. In the past year, we spent a lot of time on Zoom during the development process, and I'm very grateful that we had that accessibility, especially with our different time zones and the uncertainty that came with it. I would like to thank everyone at the gallery who's been on this journey with us, working tirelessly behind the scenes. And last but not least, thank you to everyone who tuned in this evening or morning to listen to us talk about our exhibition, about art, and the different perspectives that grew out of Tuloy Tawid. So thank you very much to your audiences for your participation and spending your time with us. This concludes our first talk in the series. Our second talk will be with artists Julius Menapul, Marigold Santos, and Karen Zalamia. I hope I said your name correctly. This is on Friday, September 10 at 6 p.m. Mountain Time, the same exact time as the talk we had today. So we do hope to see you again as we unravel the conversation from the Canadian side. The event will be posted on Facebook page, just like this one did, and which will include a registration link. So we hope to see you again soon. Good morning and good night.
Thank you so much.
Hello, good night. Sorry.
At last.
Good night, KoloWn.
Thank you all so much for spending this time with us. It was
You can interact with my profile.
Oh, well, it's great to hear your voice at the end of it.
Yeah, sorry.
No problem. We had a feeling. We expected it.
It was nice speaking with Proxy as well. So
yes, it was fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, she can explain well.
Okay,
But, yeah.
and also just for the audience and for people that weren't able to physically visit the exhibition, we will have a walkthrough video on our website with everyone's pieces, like we showed a little bit during this talk with Grace's work. And that will be the end of where I finish. So again,
Goodbye.
thank you all for joining us. My dog's going crazy, so I've got
All
to go.
right. It was nice seeing your faces and talking with you all.
Yeah, thanks for the time.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.